What we're talking about today is this 300 blackout setup. So if you haven't seen our main channel video that features this gun, head over to our main channel and check out the video. That'll provide a lot of context to what we're talking about today. So what we're actually gonna do is we're gonna break this gun down, talk about exactly what the gun setup is, because there's actually no talking in that main channel video if you haven't seen it yet. And then we're also gonna talk about all the kit that I used in that video. Now at the end of all this, we're gonna hopefully answer the question of, are mini SPRs, specifically in 300 blackout, a good idea? So once we're done talking about this kit, we're actually gonna go to the range and we're gonna zero this gun with a few different ammos, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. So let's get into the gun. If you have watched our main channel video on this gun, you may notice a couple of changes. So as they come up, I'm gonna talk about them, but also as we talk about this rifle setup, we're gonna talk about some of the relationships we have with some of the companies that are involved in this build. So let's get started from the back of the gun and we'll go to the front. So first off, what we have in the back is a pretty rare and unique item here. This is a entry stock. So this features a A1, A2 looking stock, but as you can see, it is very small. It's approximately 4 or 5 inches long or so, but paired with a law folder, it actually gets you a decent length of pull. It's still pretty short comparatively to most people's preferred length of pull length, but overall the aesthetic here looks really cool. Now this stock was given to me from a couple of my friends at the old gun shop I used to work at called Gorilla Armament, so I did not have to pay for the stock. So big thanks to those guys for sending this out to me, because this was a hard find and this definitely plays a piece into the aesthetic of this gun. With the law folder, obviously we sell law folders. We didn't get this one for free or anything. And the buffer we have in here, we just have a standard H buffer, which seems to have worked really well with this gun. Now, speaking of the buffer, we'll talk about how the gun shot real quick. Just recoil, felt recoil with subs, shot super smooth. It shot like a dream, had no malfunctions with it. Now with supers, it was a little punchy, but that's generally the case when you get 300 blackout if you don't have an adjustable gas block. So generally with 300 blackout, you want an adjustable gas block so you can have that smooth shooting with subs and supers, but we don't have that option here. So going on from there, we have an Aero Precision lower receiver, and this is just their standard X15 lower. It has their lower parts kit in it, and now we have a A2 grip that I shaved the nub off of. Aero Precision's aluminum trigger guard. I mention it because it's actually a really nice trigger guard that looks pretty good. And one of the changes that I made on this gun since the video is I added an ambi safety. This is a full length ambi safety on both sides. Not generally my personal preference, generally like a short throw, but I do like ambi safeties over non-ambi. So I did throw that onto the gun after making the video. So the trigger we got going on in here is Geissele SSA. Probably would go with an SSAE if I had another one laying around, but overall, very much like that trigger. It's a Geissele trigger, they're great. Moving up to the upper receiver. Sorry, we do have a bad lever. If you notice, every gun I have has a bad lever. It's not gonna change even with this Mark 12 theme we got going on here. So moving up to the upper receiver, this is an Aero Precision upper receiver. And we have a PRI gas busting charging handle with the combat latch, as all PRI gas busting charging handles should have. This is my second favorite charging handle out there besides the Radian. It just does block gas pretty well. And honestly, unless you're a lefty, you don't really need ambi controls with a charging handle, especially if you have a bad lever. Now, if you don't have a bad lever, I can see the need for an ambi charging handle, but if you have a bad lever, you really don't actually need an ambi charging handle. Anyways, moving up from there, we're gonna go to the barrel and the handguard. We'll talk about optics and accessories last. The barrel in this is a Criterion Core 8.5-inch 300 blackout. This barrel was sent to us for free. I've mentioned it in other videos. We have a good relationship with Criterion. We have a lot of their barrels in the Armory. A lot of them have been given to us for free, and they sent us this barrel specifically for this gun, and it came with the Badger gas block, a BCM gas tube, a headspace BCM bolt with a complete bolt carrier group. So the heart of this gun was all given to us by Criterion. So just keep that in mind as we keep going. The handguard here, this is PRI's, I don't remember the exact nomenclature of it, but it's their tube handguard. It's 7 inches long. The idea was to get that Mark 12 look going on as small as we possibly could. So that's the handguard we got going on there. We have a Surefire 300 SOCOM suppressor, and under that suppressor we have a Surefire muzzle brake. So definitely prefer muzzle brakes if I'm going to shoot only suppressed, because these actually act as superficial baffles for your suppressor. So in theory, it's supposed to be a little bit quieter. And generally you get way less carbon lock with muzzle brakes. And I don't really know why, but that's just the experience that I've noticed. Now, that's not exactly always the case, because with this gun in particular, and it's mainly because it's 300 blackout, and they're just very gassy, very dirty round, this can will not come off. I actually had to take this gun completely apart to get this can off. I had to hammer it off. It wouldn't even get shot off. So that was pretty unfortunate. Now, once I took it off, I cleaned the muzzle device because the muzzle device was used before this gun, and the can obviously comes on and off quite easily. Now, I do want to mention having to rebuild this gun. So I was going to rebuild the gun either way, even if the suppressor wasn't stuck, because we were not getting very good groups for this gun during the main channel video. So we were getting about 4 MOA groups at best with different ammos, varying different ammos. So I had Winchester White Box 125 grain supers, 200 grain subs from Winchester, and then I also had Hornady Black 110 grains, which is pretty expensive ammo, and also had MagTech 200 grain subs. And all of those ammos were shooting very poorly. So we did continue to shoot the video with the gun shooting that way. I was able to get the optic, somewhat as good a zero as I could have. But afterwards, the plan was just I was going to take the gun apart, reassemble it just to see if I over torqued something. Maybe the gas tube was, riding up along the barrel nut or the upper receiver, causing some deflection, whatever the case may be. So the gun is freshly rebuilt. So hopefully we're going to see some better groups after doing that. And like I said, we're going to try some different ammos. Other than that, moving on from the gun, we have a swan sleeve on top of this. This is designed for M16s, not Mark 12s. I could have got the Mark 12, rail to really get this thing as close to clone correct, I guess, even though this is a 8.5 inch thinner blackout. But this swan sleeve actually looks pretty good and fits the gun perfect. So that's what we got going on there. And this was intended just for aesthetics, to be honest. This was not needed whatsoever. However, we did decide to do scope rings on the optic, again, for the aesthetic purpose to make it look more like a Mark 12 instead of a cantilever mount. And with using scope rings, I needed something to be able to get these scope rings mounted a little bit farther for eye relief reasons. So we do have Sequence Precisions. I don't remember the height of these scope rings. They are pretty low. I think they're right around an inch. They're not anywhere near 1.5 inches like standard lower 1/3 or anything like that. And in the mount itself, we have a Nightforce NX8 1:8. We are actually testing this optic, and I'm actually gonna be testing it on this gun primarily. I will put it on guns that can shoot out to a little bit more distance, but this optic's pretty cool. It is very small and compact. It's about 17 ounces, it has a very, very bright reticle. And I will say the 1x on this optic is phenomenal. It's much better than a lot of LPVOs out there. Now, with it being so small and so light, no free lunch, this optic has a pretty tight eye box and a really, really small field of view. So just keep that in mind if you're looking at this optic. It is a very good price point too. So if you're looking for a lightweight optic that has a little bit of flex and can do a lot of different things, the NX8 might be for you. Moving back from there, we have an RMR on our offset mount, and placing all of these things on the swan mount actually proved to be pretty difficult. So that's why these scope rings are butted all the way up against the turrets. It was the only place I can get the scope rings to mount and be able to fit the RMR as well, because everything is right next to each other. The RMR is almost bumped up all the way to the scope rings. The extended throw lever guy for the NX8 goes all the way down to the RMR. So this took like 2 hours to figure this out because it kept mounting it, remounting it, whatever. We have a Vortex bubble level here. This thing kind of sucks, to be honest. I actually really like the idea of it, its placement, but I've bumped it more than once and it has moved. So you'll probably see some footage of this guy completely crooked, and it's because it just moved on its own for me bumping it around. I just don't know actually how tight to torque it. There's probably a torque spec. I don't know what it is, and I don't want to, ruin the optic over a bubble level that I'm probably not even paying attention to. Other than that, for the accessories, let's talk about the sling. So the sling is something that I did slightly change from the main channel video. I'm going to spin the gun around so you guys can kind of see it. So it was attached to a QD point all the way up here. Decided to go with clash hooks, and then I had a QD attached to the bottom of the law folder. I hate the fact that this is the only place I could put a QD on the rear of this gun right now. It's just in the way of my hand. That's why I was wearing 2 gloves the whole time in the video. This was just in the way of my hand about doing everything. But I do prefer that comparatively attached to the end of the stock. I just hate slings attached to the end of guns if I'm moving around and shooting a lot. I just find the sling to fall off my body quite a bit and gets hung up on things, et cetera, et cetera. So if I can attach a sling towards the closer part of the receivers, that's what I'm gonna do. But I did change it because this actually started to really get annoying with my hand. So I have the sling attached to a clash hook to the end of the stock. Obviously these make a lot of noise. If you just put some tape around the sling attachment points, you're gonna mitigate the majority of that noise. Other than that is the light setup. So I did have the new Surefire pressure pad on top. That pressure pad can do constant or momentary. If you press it all the way down, it's constant. But that being on top, if I put my thumb on it, it got in the way of the optic. So really needed to move the pressure pad off to the side. So now we have their standard pressure pad that has a constant on option. I just cut off the Picatinny mounting option there, so it's just Velcro there and kind of taped on. So other than that, the light itself is still the same, it's just the pressure pad's moved out of the way. And then finally, the last thing we changed is the bipod. So we had a Harris mini bipod on the gun. That worked pretty well, except when the bipod was mounted on the gun, there's already very minimal real estate going on with this rail. So the bipod hung back a lot farther, so I wasn't really able to hold on the gun. Now with the Atlas, I don't have that as much of a problem there. It's much more streamlined, and also with the Atlas, I can store it this way. So when I put it in a bag, I can store the bipod that way if I didn't want to take it off. Or, you know, if I have the suppressor on, bipod goes that way too. It's kind of cool. So I do want to show the gun real quick, folded, just to show you guys how small it can get. So the problem with attaching a sling to the end of the gun, aside from it not being my personal preference, is that you can't really wrap the sling up when you fold a gun. So I'm not even going to try it. Now that, my friends, I think is very cool, how small this gun can get. So that's the overall setup of this gun. I think we covered everything. We went over it pretty quick. So let's start talking about some of the kit I used. So moving on to the kit, I'm going to talk about the kind of belt setup that I had going on here. It was just an Ironside setup with my personal Glock 19. This is a Gen 4 Glock 19. Classic TLR7A with a Acro P2 on it. I've been carrying this for a very long time. The Acro is actually still my favorite pistol optic out there. Unless I'm shooting a competition, then I would prefer an SRO. But I just love the glass clarity of Acros. The reticle is super crisp to my eyes. But anyways, that's the pistol setup. And then the belt setup we have with the Ironside, we just have pistol mag, tourniquet, and a rifle mag holder. This kind of just like sends my bolt home, if I'm being honest, the way this looks and how it just sits on my waist. Now I will say, I do have a smaller waist. I have about a 28-inch waist and 3 attachments with the Ironside. Doesn't flex around my body quite as much as I would like it to. I really have to cinch my belt down, which I'm not able to actually cinch my belt down tight enough for this. So if I were going to change anything about this, I'd probably just remove either the tourniquet or the rifle mag carrier, and just run the rifle mag in my back pocket or the tourniquet in my back pocket or something like that. But other than that, this is actually a pretty fun setup to use, especially with a ready rig. So this is the ready rig setup that I was using in the video. Now this is my personal ready rig. I actually bought this the day the ready rig came out, before I worked at T.REX. And if there's actually one piece of nylon that I've worn more than anything else besides stuff I wore in the military, this is it, and it's still holding up extremely well. I've actually even shoved AK magazines into this thing, and these magazine holders still retain standard AR mags pretty well. So we'll go around this kit real quick. We'll talk about it, but first things first is to get this out of the way. This is the ear pro that I use. You probably see me wearing this in a lot of the content that I've been in. These are high threats. These are basically sword-ins, just before they were called sword-ins. These were issued to me in the military. They do have comm capability, an old school comm capability, so I have an adapter on it, so it'll work with the U94 that I got going on here. I like these headphones a lot. I just got used to the sound of them. I still think autos are better than these, but like I said, I'm just kind of used to the sound, and I like the way these look, and kind of nostalgic at this point. These are almost 10 years old. So anyways, other than that, just have a little Princeton Tech flashlight on here that's Velcroed on. I know a lot of people have questioned about that thing, and this thing can just twist off if I don't want it on there. I think this thing's actually broken, so I'll probably replace it at one point. Now, as we get into this chest rig, it is important to note that there are some things that I carry on my body that this chest rig supplements. So I keep that same idea across the board when I'm using any sort of kit. There's certain things that I carry on my body that my kit will supplement. So you won't see things on this kit that I actually carry on my body. So for example, let's pull it out of my pocket right now. We have a multi-tool and a flashlight. Now this is a Leatherman. This is kind of an EDC multi-tool, but it can take bits. So I can do T15s, T20s, Phillips head, flatheads, all that sort of thing with this multi-tool, and I store extra bits in the bag, which we'll talk about in a minute. So I have this. I have my flashlight, which I can actually attach to my hat if I really wanted to. So I have a little headlamp if I want to. And then the other big thing to note that I carry on my body is my EDC medical. So this is the T.REX Arms Med C. So this plus the tourniquet on my waist plus this med kit will give me a full IFAK. So going into the kit here, we have a Faro Concepts mini dangler. I really, really like this pouch. It can be used for a number of different things. It does have some organization in there for medical So I have half of a full IFAK in here, and then what's on my waist and my body completes it. And then we have the T.REX Arm Sticky GP pouch. Now this is an older one. Our Velcro is now orientated straight. But what I got going on in here, I have a Leatherman trauma shear little multi-tool guy here. So this has a seatbelt cutter, a glass breaker, and its trauma shears. This is a very, very valuable piece of kit, in my opinion. So instead of carrying a multi-tool in my kit, I always have one of these. This can do 3 things that my Leatherman cannot. I have just some note-taking stuff going on there, and then really the only other piece of interesting kit that I keep generally on my body is signaling, especially with the idea of this kit, which is kind of a not first responder, but active shooter response type gig going on here. So that's kind of the theme of this kit, is being able to respond to something like civil unrest, and this kind of kit's kind of stored in your vehicle or something like that. So signaling device going on there. I'll just get that out of the way as we talk about it. Sharpie for sharpening things. So for the radio, we have a Yaesu VX6R. This is one of my favorite radios because it can do a lot of different things, especially if you Mars mod it. So the frequency range on this can be expanded quite a bit through that Mars mod. It's a very, very durable radio. It can be programmed on the front face of it, so it doesn't need software. It can definitely be programmed further and a little bit easier if you use software, but if you have to change something on the fly, you can. So this is mainly just for listening to emergency frequencies or even law enforcement if I can get them. So that's what that radio is. Carry 2 mags on the front, and then off to the side here we have a distractionary device. So this is a airsoft flashbang. If you guys watched the main channel YouTube video, you got to see one of those get used. Actually 2 if you stay for the end plate. I highly recommend you stay for the end plate of that video. You might get a laugh. And then on the other side, we have a smoke grenade. So signaling devices like smoke grenades and also devices that can obstruct your movement are very, very valuable. In my experience in the military, I use these more than anything through training and stuff. So it's almost like one of those things that I always want to have them on my kit because I've seen how valuable they can be. Now the last thing on this kit that we didn't talk about is the U94 going to the radio. This is just the standard push-to-talk, one of the most common ones you see out there. So it's nice and small, it's electrical taped on, and it's good to go. So hanging off the kit, we have a little sand sock here. This is kind of a heavier one. I would generally want to do a lighter one because if you have a heavy sand sock hanging off your kit, it'll sway if you're not using it, and it can definitely throw your shots off. So that's kind of one of the good reasons to have a lighter weight one. And then just some gloves. So that's the Ready Rig setup. Like I said, I've been using this for years, since the day the Ready Rig came out, and it's been holding up extremely well. And these things, if anything else, are very, very comfortable. Moving on to the YEL Bag, we do need to talk about 2 more things real quick, and that is the Kestrel and the laser rangefinder that I carry on me. So I have the Kestrel in one of the pistol mag pouches on the Ready Rig. This is important for numerous reasons, especially if you have a precision gun, even if it's just a 300 blackout that's intended only got the 300 meters. This will tell me exactly where I need to hold, depending on the distance and some environmental stuff. So very, very important to have on me. And then the laser rangefinder, actually just keep in a back pocket because this thing's just kind of an awkward size. But just a binocular gives me some, magnification if I want to observe with one eye. It's not the best at that. And then it also tells me mainly the distance of what I'm trying to shoot at. So that's that. Now, moving on to the YEL Bag. Just want to go over what's in this bag. So again, the same idea applies here. I have gear on my body, the Ready Rig supplements on what's on my body, and the YEL Bag supplements what's on the Ready Rig in my body. So that's kind of the theme going on here. You're going to see some equipment in this bag that I haven't mentioned yet, like water. So first things first, I should just go through the main pocket first. And this guy, let's unbuckle it real quick. We have a Camelback, and we also have some water purification. So this is just a can of provisions, water purification or water decon kit. So there is going to be some sort of sustainment. I don't like the word sustainment. I actually probably shouldn't use it. But there's going to be some sort of that equipment in this bag. So we have water purification if we need it, if we need additional water. This little guy here is actually just a fire starting kit. So I got matches, I got a fire starter, I got some fuel for a fire to really help the fire get started. And then I also have a little thermal blanket. So the idea behind this equipment is I can do the very, very basics of survival here. I can purify some additional water, and you as a human being need fire in order to survive outside. So that's what I got going on here. I don't have any additional food in here. This is not intended to be a prolonged survival setup. This will just get me through at least 3 days, and I can extend out this equipment for up to 7 if I absolutely have to. You don't need food for 7 days, by the way. All right, going on from there, we have this little guy here. So this is a down shooter bag is what it's called. And this is just a big old bag. I can roll it out, but it just has some backpack straps. And what this can do is if, you know, someone gets hurt, I have a friend that gets hurt, or I find some gear or equipment that I want to keep on me, or, you know, tactically acquire. This gives me a bag to be able to do that, and it's quite large, so I can fit a lot of stuff in here. So at the bottom of this yoke bag, we have a litter. So this is just a roll-up litter. Now carrying a body or a person on one of these litters is no fun. It's miserable, especially if you do it by yourself. But what's even worse than carrying a person on this litter is having to carry a person without a litter at all. So obviously we would prefer a pulled litter and multiple people to help with that. But sometimes you just gotta work with what you got. And this can roll up nice and compact and can stuff into a bag. So I actually normally keep this in my EDC backpack. And I actually had to use this in real life. I responded to a car accident, and the guy I thought he was dead, to be honest. But once I got him out of the vehicle, there was just a very steep ditch, and this helped quite a bit get the guy to the ambulance because the paramedics were too fat and out of shape to help the guy. So I've actually used this in real life. Now going on to where normally you would store a helmet in this backpack, I have a Med H. So additional medical equipment. This is a complete IFAK. The idea behind this thing being attached to a fanny pack, I can give this to someone if they don't have any medical equipment, especially, like I said, the main idea here is responding to a situation like a mass shooter. So I can give this to someone and they can treat casualties at the same time I'm treating with the equipment I already have on me. So just additional medical equipment there. The front of the bag is where I'm gonna have extra ammunition. So I just have a couple mags here. So just a couple pistol mags and a couple rifle mags. Now some people will be like, oh, you have that space for additional rifle mags, why not just only do rifle mags? And that's not a bad idea. However, sometimes rifles go down. So I wanna have extra ammo for both guns in case for some reason this rifle goes down, and it's 300 blackout. It's never been the most reliable cartridge out there to begin with. On the side of the bag, we have 2 more flashbangs, just to again supplement what's on the ready rig. And on the other side, we have an additional smoke grenade. Now, this is just a decoy smoke grenade. In real life, I would have additional, you know, airsoft flash or smoke grenades, but you guys get the idea. Now we have 2 more pockets to go through real quick. On the front here, we just have spare batteries. So this is important. I think that you should prioritize this in your kit no matter what. So spare batteries for every piece of equipment that you're carrying, spare radio battery if you have it. And then I also keep a little battery pack for my phone. So this is just a little Anchor battery charger guy. This will get my phone to about a half a charge if I absolutely need it. So again, just additional power means for all of the equipment that I have on me. The last pouch we have here is just some basic admin stuff. So I got some zip ties. I have the additional bits for my Leatherman, and then I have some 550 cord, some general purpose items that can be used for a number of different things. So that's the yoke bag. There's only one more thing on here we'll talk about, and that's a whistle. So again, with what this kit is set up for, being able to get people's attention sometimes is necessary, and a whistle can do that really, really well. So I just have this tied off to the bag and stuffed down in there, and I can reach around and grab it super quick if I need to. All right guys, so that was the kit that I used in the video. So the last thing I want to talk about is just the ammo we're gonna use at the range today. So like I mentioned earlier, we did not get the best groups with this gun, so we've rebuilt the gun. So just reassembled the upper, make sure everything was good. And now we're gonna group the gun with different ammo. So we have Winchester white box, 125 grain and 200 grain. So 125 supers, 200 grain subs. This is kind of cheaper ammo. Don't expect the gun to perform all that well with this, but that's what we used in the video. We used 125 supers during the video. We didn't use the 200 grain subs. We used these MagTech 200 grain subs. This is just the ammo that we used. We didn't actually group it. We're not gonna group this ammo today. This is just kind of burner sub ammo that we use. So we're not gonna bring this out there. We have Hornady Black. So we have the 110 grain T.REXs. This is the ammo I attempted to zero during the video. We're gonna retry again with some more of it. And then we also have Hornady Black 208 grain AMAXs. So another really good ammo choice. We're gonna group both of those. Now this is the Indian manufacturer that Criterion recommends. This is Black Hills. This is probably the best of the best out there. So we have 115 grain dual performance. Now Criterion recommends 110s from Black Hills, but we have the 115s. We already have the 110 Hornady Blacks. That's why I got the 115s. And also finding the 110s for this ammo is kind of difficult. And then lastly, we have 220 grain subs from Black Hills. This is also an ammunition that Criterion recommends. So we should see the best performance based on Criterion's recommendation out of the 110s and these 220s and possibly these 115s. Now, I do want to talk about price real quick on this ammo before we head out there, because this ammo is not cheap. So these Black Hills in particular are almost $2 a round. So very, very expensive. Supers and subs, these are high performance rounds. However, this is definitely like killing people ammo. This is not ammo I would shoot at the range on a regular basis. And Hornady Black is a little bit cheaper. I can't remember the price off the top of my head, but I think these are around $1.50 or so a round. I could be wrong, but it's gonna be around there. And then the Winchester's right at $1. So definitely cheaper stuff. So let's head out to the range and group this gun. So we just finished grouping the guns with all this different ammo. Now, hopefully with this data, we can answer the question, are Mini SPRs really a viable solution? So we did see throughout the video, and even today just kind of confirmed, this gun definitely works and it's a lot of fun. So now we just need to ensure that the gun's actually accurate. So we're actually gonna start with the largest groups and go down to the smallest from the ammos we shot. So actually the largest group that we had was with this Hornady Black 110 grain T.REX. So it was a 9.75 inch group, and that's at 100 meters. So kind of weird. Now we did buy some new 110s, and these are VMAXs. We'll talk about that when we get to it, but very, very interesting that this ammo shot that large in groups. So the next groups, and move over here to the Winchesters. So we have the 200 grain Winchester. These are our two groups here. And the smallest of the two is 5.5 inches. So right at 5.5 inches, and it's this group right here. So we got a double there, and that's about a 5.5 inch group. Winchester, again, this is still, you know, that cheap ammo. So 125 grain supers, we have a 3.5 inch group. This is the better of the two. So this is 3.25 inches right here. And then this was the other 5 round group. So I had a flyer here. Could have been me, could have been, you know, a number of different things, but so we'll go with the better group there. So going on from there, we're actually gonna hit Hornady, some of the Hornady Black ammo. So we were expecting to see a little bit better accuracy with the Hornady Black. So with our 220 grain OTMs, our best group was 3.25. So I'm actually pretty satisfied with that, considering these are subs at 100 meters. Some people may expect a little better. I was hoping for a little better, considering we're trying to have a precision gun here, but 3.25, that's what we got. So moving on from there, the next group is 208 grain Hornadys. These are AMAX rounds. So the best group we got with these, actually really, really good group here. We have a 2.75, so 2.75 inches. There's a flyer here. Who knows what that could have been me. But I'm actually really, really surprised and satisfied with that group. Now moving on from there, we have the next Hornady round again. So like I said, we reshot the 110 grains, but this time it's VMAX, and this is new ammo, and we got down to 2.5 inches. So I think that really just concludes, even, you know, seeing all these other groups, that this 110 NTXs just don't play well with this gun, or we just got a bad batch of ammo from Hornady Black. Now the best group we got, no surprise, is Black Hills. So these are 115 grain dual performance rounds. These are very, very expensive, but I got a 1.8 MOA group here, 1.8 inches at 100 meters. So this line right here is 1 inch, by the way. So considering this is kind of a flyer, again, could have been me. I'm also shooting through a lot of mirage out here. So that is definitely one thing I want to note with these groups, is that out here with the sun, right now we got some cloud cover. We don't really have mirage at this very moment, but while we're shooting majority of these groups, we got a lot of sunlight. It's pretty hot out here. It's a little over 90 degrees, and I shoot through a lot of mirage. So all I have to say, there's definitely some variables that come into play, and considering how much better these groups were comparatively to when we first shot this gun, that could have been a number of different things, from me over torquing something, to just me sucking as a shooter, to wind, humidity, whatever the case may be. But overall, we got much better groups today after the gun was reassembled. So the question is, should you get, or should you buy, should you assemble, create a Mini SPR in 300 Blackout? And I'm gonna say go for it. I mean, I think you can definitely accurize this gun a little bit more than I did, and you definitely don't have to Mark 12 theme it. This was just kind of for fun. You know, we do actually have fun here, believe it or not, and this gun was a lot of fun. So, you know, you can build this gun with modern stuff, a better optic and whatnot, and definitely get this even more accurate. Now, when it comes to terminal ballistics with this ammo and this gun, I actually don't know how effective 300 blackout is, out to what distance out of this barrel length. I don't know. From what I've seen online, 8-inch barrels in that general range between 7.5 to 8-inch barrels with 110 grains are very, very similar to 77 grains out of an 11.5-inch 5.56 gun. So, you know, what I'm going to call that is, if I have good ammo out of this gun, I could probably stretch it to 300 meter with good terminal ballistics, but that's just guessing. So, hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you guys have any questions regarding this gun, the kit we used, you know, really anything at all, email us at team@trex-arms.com. And until next time, guys, this is Brandon at T.REX. It's 340 meters. This is with Black Hills 220 grain open tip match. So this should be about a 18 mil hold. Not bad, 3 for 5, 340 meters of subs.